For the death's head strikes its wearer if he ever deviates from our prescribed course. And that's Theodor Eicke.
Oh, sweet.
And it's a famous Nazi, if you don't know. And I'm Jen.
I'm Becky.
And this is Too Close to Home. We are not Nazis.
No, but we're doing a Nazi edition.
Yes, we are. We are. This is going to be about Rudolph Hoess, the commandant of Auschwitz. This has been my entire life for the last fucking 2 months, it feels like. I literally went to a job interview 2 weeks ago, and they're like, so what are you reading? I'm reading about the commandant of Auschwitz. It's really dark stuff. I could have just lied. But you know what? Not me. Not this girl.
What have you been reading lately? Sir, the Bible. That's all I read.
Look at me. Don't I look holy? So there are about 30 billion resources, and I'll go ahead and go through them. The Commandant of Auschwitz, autobiography by Rudolph Hoess. KL, A History of Nazi Concentration Camps by Niklaus Wachsmann. That one is really good. I have both those books right there. That KL book literally is a Bible. It has, you know how the Bible has really, really thin pages? Motherfucker has Bible pages. I ordered it off of Amazon being like, this is going to be good because he's writing his own biography. So he's going to lie about all sorts of shit. And this is like one of the books about Nazi concentration camps. I was not prepared.
I don't think you ever really can be.
No, you really can't. No. So Third Reich, The Fall and Rise on Netflix. It's a 2-part documentary. Nazi Death Marches, 1944 to 1945. That's on Amazon Prime. Nazis at Nuremberg, The Lost Testimony on Hulu. Telegraph UK, Smithsonian Magazine, Auschwitz.org. GeoPeople, Everyday Science, The Holocaust Encyclopedia. Seton Hall University, World Holocaust Remembrance Center. Jewish Currents Organization, the Conference on Jewish Material Claims Against Germany, Music and the Holocaust Organization, CNN, the Auschwitz-Birkenau Museum, PBS, the National Library of Medicine, BBC, History of Source Blog, the Holocaust History Project, Jewish Virtual Library Organization, Facing History Organization, WW2, World War II Foundation, Jewish Gen Organization, and that's it.
I went and got a manicure while you were listening to those. That's a lot of sauces.
And I'm worried that I probably missed some because there's a ton. Like, this is what I did day and night. If I was not reading about Nazis, I was watching about Nazis.
Did you dream about them too?
No, thank God.
Aw, sad face.
Yeah, real sad. Bummer. So I had actually wrote a intro when I first started studying Rudolph, because as I read, I'll usually start writing, and then I go back and edit and everything. And so after watching hours of archival footage and documentaries, listening to recordings, and looking at historical photos, reading everything and anything just about, I decided to rewrite it because my whole view has slightly shifted. Right now, in America, things are rough, and as I wrote and saw some of the stark similarities between what was happening throughout Europe in the first 40 years of the 20th century and America as we know it right now, it's hard not to compare them. The difference is, our future hasn't been written yet. We can change it. To start, I want to give you a very wise quote from renowned psychologist G.M. Gilbert, who studied the Nazis on trial at Nuremberg. I told you once that I was searching for the nature of evil. I think I've come close to defining it, a lack of empathy. It's one characteristic that connects all the defendants. A genuine incapacity to feel with their fellow man. Evil, I think, is the absence of empathy. The ability to lack empathy hasn't only been a quality in Nazis like Rudolph Hoess, but it's possible in all humans. It's a personal choice to listen to your heart and do the human and empathetic thing. I think that's why the Holocaust hurts to learn about. To think these things happen to real people in the real world feels like an unreal nightmare. It's real and it's terrifying. It's a reminder that you must always keep your head on a swivel. And most importantly, that education is the prophylactic for ignorance.
That's a great quote.
Thank you.
Especially with the stuff about empathy going on right now in our world.
It really is.
And saying that we shouldn't have empathy.
I chose to write about Rudy, as I like to call him, to show that it takes more than one person to create such atrocities. It took many hands to manufacture the Holocaust, and his is a very important set. I learned more about this intricate piece of shit when I reviewed the movie Zone of Interest, which is about the other side of the wall where his family was living a beautiful life despite the smell of dead bodies and ashes in the air. I highly recommend it, but do so after listening to this because it will make even graver sense then. Content warning. This will be depressing and sad, but I will do my best to make appropriate jokes for levity when I can. But I do have to warn you now. Remember, I am human. I have anxiety, and my go-to self-soothing tactic is make a little jokey joke.
Little jokey joke is just a good, fun way of processing trauma.
Yes. So they might not be great at that moment. We'll edit out the real bad ones because sometimes this mouth just be doing its own thing.
That's true. That's true.
So there will be, and this is for all episodes, all of them, because there's quite a few. There's going to be suicide, abortion, death, desecration of bodies, political extremism, violence, genocide, human experimentation, cannibalism, starvation, anti-Semitism, homophobia, religious intolerance, harm to children. It's really everything you'd love in a heartwarming story. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Every episode carries this warning, so let's go ahead and bite the bullet and get into the story. So let's talk about his beginnings. He was born a precocious fellow November 25th, 1901, and he would spend much of his times in the hills are alive with the sound of music style.
Him and I are birthday month buddies.
I mean, that's what I thought. Although you're not a Nazi. Again, just going to note that.
But I'm a little bit of a jerk.
I'm a jerk. That's exactly what I just with that song. Anyways, so he wrote about running through meadows and forests. He's just had a beautiful, idyllic German childhood. He loved animals specifically. He loved them so much that his family would do anything they could to dissuade this intense love.
They didn't want him to like animals?
No, he took it to like a whole new level. Like animals were his only friends.
Oh, okay.
He
might have been better if it stayed that way, but carry on.
Yeah. He believed his mother just feared for his safety as he had no fear towards any animal, from dogs to cat to farm animals. Camilla was like that too, though. Like, we went to a friend's house and they had 2 cats that were older and they warned us that, like, they don't like to be touched and hugged on. And we told Camilla not. And I said, please don't touch these cats. And of course she hugged it and it scratched the shit out of her. And they were like, oh my God, I'm so sorry. I'm like, don't be mad at that cat doing what that cat gonna do.
Be mad at that child over there.
And she would go back and try to hug that thing again because it's fluffy.
Oh, bless her little heart.
He stated that there were no children his age where they lived, so he spent a lot of time by the water reservoir in his small town or the neighborhood stables petting their horses. He loved the water and would always be drawn to it in life. At 7 years old, he got his first best friend, Hans the pony. His quote, "I had a comrade at last," would be how he would describe their union. They would hang out together all the time, even sneaking him up to his room if his parents weren't home. Dog, if I came home and there was little horse poopies, little nuggies.
First of all, they wouldn't be little, but carry on. That's the fastest way to become
I'm assuming it's a little baby thing, like a little baby pony.
It's the quickest way to become a stable boy. Will you be sleeping in the stable with the horse?
Because the hell you'll have that horse in her.
The hell you will.
So he had 2 sisters and, of course, a mother and father. Honestly, he barely speaks of his sisters, as he would keep to himself, saying he regretted not attempting a relationship with them at all, and that they had, quote, always been strangers to me. They were younger than him and close with their mother. He worded his biography like that. Their mother, not ours. They would attempt for years to connect with him, but he, quote, never wished to have much to do with them.
That's sad.
Again, I use there's a shit ton of quotes in this story because I have his biography, and then I also have a whole wicked amount of like witness statements, victim statements, and other officers that are SS. So just be prepared. It's going to be a good time. His relationship with his parents was the same. All that love and affection he believed most experienced with his parents was absent in him, despite having profound respect for them. He was like an anti-Joseph Fritz, whose mother played a very pivotal role in his upbringing, where Hoess acted like they were furniture. His family, and particularly his father, were devoutly Catholic, and Hoess's father had pretty much decided for him that he's going to be a priest when he grew up.
Oh, okay. Thanks.
His unfaltering way of following orders would begin here, in my opinion. His parents would drill into his mind that authority is always right and that you should always do what you're told. He would note that his father was anti-Reich, but stated that despite being against its policy, however strong one's opposition was, the laws and decrees of the state should be obeyed unconditionally. And that's not me, dog. Resist. Okay. Rage Against the Machine was one of my favorites growing up, okay?
Resist to a degree is more my go.
Well, I mean, I'm not going to be resisting enough to get in the cuffs, okay? I don't need no silver bracelets. But I will let this mouth run.
Yes.
His father would spend hours with him talking about his future, teaching him how to be meticulous, precise in all his work, as evil deeds always seemed to spring from apparently insignificant misdeeds. One instance, he got his son out of the bed in the middle of the night to pick up a saddlecloth he had dropped in the garden.
Jesus.
Anything that was done wrong was corrected, and then intensely would just speak down to him like how wrong it is and how it fucks everything up. Screams OCD. Thinking that these insignificant actions have detrimental consequences, which is really an OCD ritual behavior. They think that I have actual OCD, and mine's not necessarily down this path, but there are people that experience it. Like if I don't keep my house clean or a certain way, someone's gonna die. Like just completely illogical things.
Oh yeah, mine isn't superstitious related like that, but
Yeah.
it is like if I don't keep my house clean, this will be the day I get murdered, and then the cops and everybody comes into my dirty house. I do have that.
Girl, this is exactly how I would think.
I need when they're describing the scene to be, we knew exactly what was out of place because her house was meticulously clean.
Yes.
That's what I need them to be describing it as. Not, there was a lot of clutter around the house, and she did have a few stacks of boxes of magazines.
Say something. I had a landlord say something that my fan was dirty inside my bedroom, and it hurt my feelings so bad. And I told my best friend about it. He's like, listen, we all know that you have a lot of problems with your cleaning, okay? And I'm not saying problems that you don't, problems that you do too much. So fuck that lady. She just has a fucking stick up her ass. And I was like, you know what? Thank you. Thank you.
I'm going to go clean the fan now.
Yes. So, Hoess's father would take him on pilgrimages to religious sites in Europe as his fervor deepened. Rudy would be very religious and follow along until one day he accidentally knocked a kid down the stairs at school. Quote, during the years, hundreds of schoolboys must have fallen down those stairs, I amongst them, and no one was seriously hurt. This particular boy was simply unlucky, and he would receive 3 days confinement. I don't know where they're confining him, but that's just what they wrote. All I can think is like maybe it's like ISS or something.
My guess would be he was talking about he was in the hospital.
Oh, they were talking about Hoess was confined, not the boy.
Not the boy that fell. Mm-hmm. Oh, okay.
This happened on a Saturday morning. So he said, let me tell my parents Monday, okay? So they can enjoy their Sunday, and then I'll just confess to the priest on Sunday and be like, Monday rolls around, I've already confessed my sins. I've already repented. I know I'm wrong. You know what I'm saying? I got this under control. And then his priest told his daddy about him throwing a kid down the stairs. Rudy's dad swore that he had learned it elsewhere, but the damage was already done. You know, he had this unfaltering faith in priests. Like, I confess to you, and you're not supposed to. This is like doctor-patient privilege.
Right?
And the fact that he got dimed out by that priest, he's like, is God even real? That's where he started, seriously.
The audacity of Jesus.
In typical childish fashion, he eliminated all others who could have told his father. Their phone was broke. Neither parent had went into town that day, and he had no classmates that lived close by. So it had to be the priest.
Had to be.
This shook him as he thought even the most egregious sins confessed would never be discussed outside the confessional, and certainly not to anyone other than the confessed.
Right?
He decided that henceforth he would no longer be confessing, and that this would be the beginning of his journey to be an atheist. You'd think, I bet his dad wasn't for it, but truly, he died a year after this and barely mentions his father past that. As he states, he was not really affected by his death.
Obviously.
Furniture, you know what I mean? Oh no, my favorite chair broke. Too bad.
Sad face. Carry on. Let's go shopping for a new one.
Rudy would turn his eyes away from priesthood and direct them towards military as World War I would begin. He and his family lived on the outskirts of Mannheim, which hosted a military garrison. He would spend hours there when not in school, volunteering to hand out drinks and tobacco. He enjoyed the stories from soldiers who had been in the front saying, "The soldier's blood that ran in my veins responded." Like, baby, calm down.
Calm it down.
You handing out Kool-Aid.
That's it.
Okay? We're not out here trying to sign you up. He decided he did not want to miss this war, and he wanted to join the military, and he wanted to fight for the fatherland. His family, of course, was against this. They had already put funds aside for his religious schooling to enter the priesthood, but he had already made the turn away from the church and was like, no, I'm going to be a fucking soldier. With the help of one of the cavalry captains he had met in the hospital, he was able to join the regiment that both his father and grandfather served in, the 21st Baden Regiment of Dragoons. Oh, that's a cool name. Dragoons. He left without telling his mother or the rest of the family, and had a short period of training before he was sent to Turkey and then straight to the Iraq front. Sadly, his mother would die before he returned home. He was real tore about it, too, if you could tell by this lengthy passage that he wrote about his mother's death. "I was to see her no more, for she died in 1917.
Oh, man, he is...
Toe up.
Yeah, he might need some therapy.
I mean, dog. In fact, he was far more interested in his journey, which was quite impressionable for a boy of 16. He lied about his age, as many did in that time. My own grandfather, he joined just to get a pair of shoes.
I don't mean to laugh. That's very sad.
It's sad, but it's true. He stayed briefly in what was then Constantinople, which is modern-day Istanbul, before making it to the front. He would describe his first time in action in Iraq. His regiment had been split and attached to 3 different Turkish regiments. As they were doing their initial training with the Turks, the enemy, which was British and New Zealanders and Indians from India, launched an attack. Immediately, the Turks were like, no, thank you. And they shagged ass, while the German soldiers were like, what the fuck? What? So they just parceled it into small groups just to defend themselves. For them to have come from Germany, they have to have gotten some sunburns and shit. And then you had people shooting at you. Okay?
Not my idea of a good vacation.
I don't like sand.
Rude.
It's coarse and it hurts my skin. As they laid in the sand amongst the ruins and stones of an old town that had been abandoned for centuries, their ammunition was low and the enemy was shooting rapidly and more precisely. His fellow soldiers were falling like flies around him, and he was frozen in terror. He recalled calling to the soldier on his left with no response. When he looked, he saw why. He had gotten sniped, and he was laying dead from a massive head wound. Rudy would turn, see his captain cool as a cucumber as if it was the day on the range, and he was just over there shooting. He said it was then that he realized it was do or die, and he would shoot and kill for the first time of what would be millions of deaths he would be responsible for. Oof. As the war went on, he would look at that man with his bushy black beard and all of the others, but eventually would become a blur. As the Indians realized that the counterattack had too much force, they began to fall back. His captain would be proud of him, and they would become friends, with Rudy stating that he was like a father to him, but it would only be for a short time. Rudy's captain would die in the Second Battle of Jordan in the spring of 1918, and he mourned his death deeply. So I guess like a whole day as opposed to not at all with his parents or something.
Post to 5 minutes.
Yeah. Like, that's a letter. Okay, move on. From here, he would head to Palestine to the front, and then he would move to the Hijaz. Is it Hijaz or Hijaz? I don't know.
Hijaz. They both sound delightful.
It's the Hijaz road to the Jerusalem front. Here, he would be walking in spots spoken about in the Bible. He would be wounded twice in World War I, in 1917 and 1918, in Mesopotamia and Palestine. And I'm not going to lie, a lot of the reasons why I wrote these names was just because I wanted to say them out loud.
Hold on, pause. You said 1917 and 1918?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. You quoted the other death wrong then. You said 1818.
Oh, yeah. We're all in the 19s. Apologies. This would earn him the Iron Cross first and second class, the Iron Crescent, and the Baden Service Medal. I don't know what any of those things mean, but sounds cool.
Sounds cool.
For you.
Pin 'em on me.
Being wounded, he would be sent to a hospital in a small German settlement between Jerusalem and Jaffa, where he would become even more disillusioned with religion. You see, there was a shit ton of holy pilgrimages in this area, which was like the first type of tourism, really. If you think about it. What did people started doing in the Europe in those days? We are going to go see some religious shit, y'all.
Yeah,
We're going to walk 500 miles to go see a bush that may have burnt.
You are right. You are 100% accurate.
Tourism means the locals can make money, and during times of peace, many pilgrimage monasteries would sell this moss that was described as coming from Golgotha. It was silver-streaked Icelandic moss with red spots to signify the blood of Jesus.
Oh.
They also traded relics. Basically, anything that would get close to a saint or Jesus would get sold for top dollar. I bet he was close to this tissue one time. I heard it was in Judah's pocket.
He blew his little baby nose with it.
He was still somewhat of a Catholic, so it disgusted him. A few of the other Catholic soldiers. The rest were largely indifferent, which is not surprising for soldiers.
No.
Regardless, it was like a huge clutch thy pearls moment in his life.
Like, I've had a few of those too, buddy.
These fraudsters. The good news about his time was he had his first love affair with a young nurse at the hospital. He needed real close attention, having been shot in the knee and then suffering from a protracted bout of malaria. He just had a bad time. Which, I don't know what about being sick and like a deadly illness would have turned that nurse on about him. You know what I'm saying? Like, ooh, I love that jaundice.
Well,
I love those cold sweats.
He caught malaria and she caught a case of the feeling.
His whole life, he has shunned people touching him or physical affection. Even as a child, he shook hands with people at best. This nurse would hold him and help him longer than necessary, which at first made him uncomfortable until, as he says, alas, I too fell under the magic spell of love. However lovely he described it, it definitely felt like grooming. He was 16 to 17 at this time, not in the best frame of the mind, and he would say that their affair had progressed stage by stage by her guidance as it would eventually be consummated. And I'm like, I don't think you're supposed to be sleeping with your older nurses, okay?
They need love too.
Becky, do you want that to happen to you?
Absolutely not.
Just saying. So he decided that while it was lovely, he wasn't into emotionless and loveless sex. And he would be very conservative in those manners for the remainder of his life. I don't even know if I can say conservative as much as on his terms, because he wasn't in control of that situation and kind of a victim. Like, can you consent under drugs? Can you consent if you're like crazy from fucking malaria? At 18, Rudolph would find himself in Damascus with World War I being over. He decided his cavalry weren't about to be arrested. They were going to walk home. And boy, did they. They sailed across the Black Sea to Varna, where they would walk on foot through Bulgaria, Romania, crossing the Transylvania Alps to Hungary and to Austria. They would be the only complete unit that made it home from the theater of war. Upon his return home, he realized his mother's death and was pretty important after all, because now he was homeless.
Oof.
His family had put his sisters in a convent, and then they kept the money aside for his priestly studies, and only that. They took everything else the family had, like all their furniture, all their little tchotchkes and shit, because, I mean, priests and nuns don't need that shit.
I mean, they don't. So, I mean,
I know they don't, but like, it's cold-hearted.
For sure it is. They played that up on some facts. So.
He was so mad, he went to his uncle and let him know he wasn't going to be in priest. And in fact, they can give his sisters an inheritance and he would no longer need a guardian. So suck it.
Thanks, but no thanks.
He said, quote, I would battle my way through the world alone, full of rage, and without saying goodbye, I left this relation-ridden house and traveled east to Prussia to join the Freikorps. Now, the Freikorps were an interesting outfit. I think of it as an unhinged secret National Guard. Post-World War I Germany was to dissolve their armed forces, but in secret, they built the Free Corps to help protect the borders and to settle any unrest in the country. Except it was just chaotic madness from his description with none of the ethics of war. No quarter was given, nor expected. Being under the radar meant they were to self-govern and punish. No tribunals or national trials would occur, just Vehmgericht, a Germanic medieval style of court where traitors were punished by hanging. They were quick to seek out and assassinate traitors and spies. So, there's no huge due process there.
Like a witch trial.
Yeah. It would be comprised of soldiers from World War I who felt out of place after returning from war. Military brethren is unlike any other, and they band together almost like a wolf pack in this corp. It was understandable that Rudy would love the shit out of this. He was able to be a vigilante and not get punished for it, nor be held down by the conventional rules that the armistice had laid down for Germany. Although he enjoyed the Free Corps, from 1918 to 1921, he would experience his own Vehmgericht. Phonetics, I'm trying. I'm doing my best.
I'm proud.
He and a few others had heard an old pal of his had been seized by the French, and that will not do.
Will not.
He found out a local school teacher by the name of Cadow was supposedly a communist spy and had dimed out his buddy. And that snitches get stitches. I don't know if y'all know that. So he and the rest of his little club, they went out drinking in the woods for a night, and they hatched a plan. I used the term,
as all good plans start, drinking in the woods.
I used the term plan loosely because they just drug him into the woods, beat him profusely with sticks and fists, slit his throat, then shot him twice in the head, point blank. That was their trial and execution. Eventually, it would be found that there was no connection and that Cadow was most likely not a spy, but according to his autobiography, the guy was, is, and will always be guilty and deserved it.
Speak your truth.
Once he was he would be arrested for this. Once he was arraigned and tried, he was found guilty and sentenced to 10 years hard labor.
Oof.
He wasn't all that bummed, though, because he expected to be liberated at any time. In fact, at sentencing, he and his co-defendants became boisterous, singing battle songs in defiance, that they had to escort all of them out of the courtroom. In 1923, when he was sentenced, there was much political unrest to the point that the government seemed to be nearly overthrown. But alas, 'twas not to be, and he would spend years incarcerated when he thought he'd be free.
Sad day for him.
He would speak much of his time in prison, but it doesn't sound much different from today's prison. He felt all the homosexual happenings around him were not because of congenital predisposition, but out of the abundance of sexual desire, and which could not be quelled in any other way, or in other words, they were gay for this day, and he sounded as if he almost sympathized for them, which was kind of weird for somebody who had Nazi ideals.
Sounds like he was gay for this day.
Yeah, like, I'm going to be cool with it because I did it. But the rest of y'all, for real gay. Nazis were very anti-gay, if you guys aren't aware. And we'll talk more about that later. Trust me. Unfortunately.
Can't wait.
He would speak of tobacco being currency, how it seemed to be a school for criminals, all in analytical terms as if he was a scientist. He was confused as to how people would share those secrets out loud, pondering if it was the loneliness that compelled them. He would say, quote, "Evening after evening, I would listen to their conversations. I thus obtained a deep insight into the psyche of these condemned men." Like, he's not a condemned
I was
man.
going to say, sir, you're one of them too.
Later, during the final year of my imprisonment, when my job as chief clerk in the general store brought me into the daily personal contact with them, I got to know them even more intimately, and I found my previous knowledge of them abundantly confirmed.
Thank you for the research paper, sir, but we will not be publishing it.
He's doing it like he's a guard. Like, he's like sitting there like, I'm just letting you know I was a chief clerk, okay? I was somebody. This time prison would be used in his career as they treated him as a subject matter expert for prisons.
Oh my God.
It's like saying, like, I'm an expert plumber because I can flush shit down the toilet.
Well, in that case, let me change my credentials real quick.
Right? I am an expert at everything.
Everything.
I use Neosporin, so I must be a doctor.
Must be.
On one of his first days in prison, he would overhear an inmate speaking to another inmate about a crime. He had entered the home of a man who was away at work, killing his servant with an axe, as well as the man's wife, who was in the advanced stages of pregnancy.
Oof.
The children there began screaming, to which he killed them one by one to stop all the fuss, which he was disgusted by. But tell me, Rudy, where was this disgust as you watched Zyklon B kill people from a room for the first time from the safety of a gas mask?
Well, that's different. They were Jews.
Oh, yes. Forgot. God.
Forgot. Jeez.
Yeah. Right.
Get your facts.
That's why I love you.
Straight.
Oh, you got to keep it. This is hard.
Yes.
Many pages would be dedicated to his, quote, findings and observations, which I observed and found hella boring.
Oh, yeah, I'm sure they were.
He talked like a Nazi propaganda machine, so this biography is a bit vomit-inducing at times from his sense of self-adoration. He, of course, celebrated his own attributes, how he was the best prisoner there ever was, the model of politeness and cleanliness. He didn't run into much trouble with junior warders because, according to him, they could see that he was smart and a civil man who had just made a simple political mistake, which wasn't even a mistake. The guy had it coming to him. While most of the prisoners and staff treated him well, he did speak of 3 guards who were probably social democrats, and they were awful to him.
Oh, my God.
By awful, I mean they would prick him with pins. Quote, this bullying usually consisted of mere pinpricks, but nevertheless managed to wound me severely.
Oh, Jesus Christ.
In fact, they hurt me much more in this way than if I had been physically beaten.
Oh, shut the fuck up. God.
Before reaching the 3rd degree, which is on par for a high-achieving Nazi, he did have somewhat of a mental breakdown. He began getting restless, losing his appetite, not wanting to work. He was working in the tailor shop at the time and had enjoyed everything that he had done. So this was very out of character. His symptoms would worsen with nightmares of being chased while he barely slept. And his thoughts were incoherent enough he couldn't even pray without dissolving into a sputtering mess.
Oh, I feel so bad for him.
His foreman was like, something's wrong. And took him to the jail doc, who diagnosed him with jail psychosis and said, you're going to get over it.
And by that, I mean, when you get out, you'll be done.
Yeah, like, get the fuck over it. His prescription was to drug the fuck out of him, wrap him tightly in a cold, wet sheets, assigned him an invalid diet, and then kept him on a cocktail of sedatives. He said it was like a spa day, and he was back to his old Sieg Heiling self before long, feeling just refreshed. There was this 3-stage system for inmates at his prison, with each giving inmates more privileges as they reached new degrees. The 3rd degree would get you early release on parole, and due to his model behavior, he achieved this by the end of his 4th year. His time in the medical ward and healing from his psychosis earned him his 2nd stripe somehow.
Oh.
He would say that having extra privileges from this, as well as changing jobs to the store clerk position, made time bearable. This might be in part because of a coworker. Best said in his words, one of my companions who, like me, was employed in the stores and who for over 10 years have kept the inventories took satanic delight in inventing and spreading baseless rumors and in observing their effect.
Okay, I am actually here for that. I hate to be on the side of a Nazi, but sounds fun.
He did this so cunningly, however, that it was never possible to put the blame on him for the serious results that sometimes flowed from his efforts. So he was so good, nobody could pin it on him. And I'm here
Love
for
it.
that, the Chisma friends, okay? That too would make jail somewhat more palatable if I had actual live soap opera happening in front of me and I'm doing the puppet stringing, okay?
Absolutely. I wouldn't do that in real life because there's just no reason for it. But if I was locked up, 100%.
I was like, could you imagine being like, that would be your jail, like the person you, all day long. You
All
would
day.
never have another boring day.
Mm-mm.
So regardless, he would eventually get his 3 stripes, designating his degree with a sense of pride, and he wore it very much. He would note that he would see this psychosis and that many of those affected ended up in a padded cell or having committed suicide. Like, he was somehow better than them by not falling to the same fate.
Did they give him the best bad guy of the jail award? He's the best
No.
bad guy there is.
No.
No, sad.
What was it? Miss America? Miss Bad Guy, the jail award.
Yes.
It's me. They love me. For 6 years, Rudy tried and failed at getting a reprieve, getting help from influential people with no success. To his surprise, however, the extreme left and extreme right-wing flanks of the Reichstag had wanted to have an amnesty exchange of prisoners, and your boy Rudy was one of them. He found himself in 1928 Berlin, shocked and overwhelmed. Shocked because amnesty came with no precursor, so he was ecstatic. He felt like it was a lot to absorb. Now, I'm not sure he really did need a moment to get himself together, but it was 6 years, and while that is no short time, in no way had enough time passed that he needed an escort to go everywhere. Like, he acted like he couldn't do things. He said this was because he was so distracted by the sights that he would just stop walking or walk into traffic. He acted like he was in an alien world. And while some things had changed, not a whole lot had changed.
He's acting like me when I'm at Disney World.
Right?
And I'm just staring at everything, walking off into places.
Rudy felt the overwhelming call to leave the city for a rural life, one with farming and nature. His family was like, that's great, but like, why don't you leave Germany? Because there are far more opportunities in other countries and far less extreme right political unrest. His friends from his time in the National Socialist German Workers' Party had said, why don't you come back and join the ranks of our fighting organization? And to both suggestions, he said no. He had felt more aligned with the Artmanen League. Now, this is a very pivotal, important part. The Artmanen League, when I say pivotal, like, it's what really got him into the sights of the right people to become a high-ranking Nazi. So the Artmanen League was a type of political movement that would eventually be absorbed by Nazism. The ideology behind the League is that the decline of the Aryan race could only be halted by encouraging people to abandon city life in the favor of settling in rural areas in the East. The East being, like, Russia, the Soviet Union at the time. This is where the origin of the name comes into play. Art meaning agricultural and mannen meaning man. So agricultural man. Coined by Willibald Henschel, the man who began this movement, he decided to see Germans retreat from the decadence of the city in order to return to the imagined idyllic rural past. This movement also placed heavy importance on racial purity, and they really hated people of Slavic backgrounds, so they focused on expanding the German Empire into Slavic territories and launching Generalplan Ost, which means master plan for the East. This is where they intended to commit a mass genocide to cleanse the land of the Untermensch Slavics. Untermensch meaning subhuman or
precious.
Unhuman. So it's no surprise that this movement would be absorbed by Nazis because they held many of the same ideals. I'm honestly surprised at the lack of comparison to the American dream of white picket fences and 1.5 children in the 1950s to the German idyllic family in the countryside of the 1930s, where they focused on that similar nuclear family dynamic of two opposite sex parents with children on the focus of being right with the Lord and that hard work sets you free.
That's lovely.
Tell me I'm wrong.
You're right.
Rudy wasn't the only Nazi enamored by this movement. Heinrich Himmler had been a member, and it was obviously a deep influence on his work as a Nazi. I'm sure you've heard of Himmler.
I don't think so. Tell me about him.
I didn't write that because I assumed you would know. Oh. I am going to talk more about him.
Okay.
Because he was actually he was close enough to Rudolph's family that his kids called him Uncle Heine.
Oh, that's
because his first name was Heinrich, but I like the Heine.
I do too.
They were both met by another prominent Nazi, Walter Dara, who wrote The Peasantry as the Life Source of the Nordic Race, which caught Hitler's attention, leading to his later appointment as Reichsminister of Food and Agriculture. Gare was a firm believer in the superiority of the Nordic race, and his philosophy was a major influence on Himmler. Why is all this important? Because these ideals keep running deeper and deeper like shit in an outhouse, friends. Rudy at this point was a clean sponge. He had removed his religion. He removed his family. He basically removed his humanity. He just wanted to be this soldier, making him like a blank slate to make a subservient Nazi who truly believed in the ideals that Hitler preached. His utter compliance in prison shows he would be easy to assimilate into the right.
It's facts.
Facts on facts on facts.
Mm-hmm.
With joining the Artmanen, Rudy had abandoned his old life. He wanted to start fresh in his agricultural life. It's in the League that he meets his wife Hedwig, not the owl.
Sorry, Emma, he didn't marry Snowy Owl.
She joined with her brother and shared many of the same ideals as Rudolph. She was 21 and he was 29, and it was a very German romance. By German, I mean his description kind of makes it anticlimactic and not really romantic. He knew they would work together farming really well, and he knew that they both, which they both knew would be a difficult life, and that he wouldn't have to be lonely anymore. Check, check, check. Oh, perfect wife material.
There you go.
They got married in 1929 rather quickly, and within the first 5 years of marriage, they had their first 3 children. Klaus in 1930, Heidi Traud in 1932, and Inga Bridget in 1933. 1933 is when Hitler became chancellor, just as a comparable timeline since World War II is very significant in this story. I had the hardest time because he bounced back and forth in his timeline, and he would just skip stuff that he didn't want to talk about.
Sure. Don't we all?
Or he would end up talking about shit that had no relevance.
Oh.
Like the horse thing.
Sounds like him and I got a lot in common.
The horse thing, yeah, right. The horse thing went on for like 5 pages, and I was like, okay, we're not doing that. How much do you need to talk about Hans the horse?
He wasn't Mr. Ed. He didn't talk. Move it on.
So Rudy says he always intended to return to farming when the war ended, and that he regretted his decision to leave it. But to me, it's more like he regretted wanting an exciting life of a soldier versus a farmer. No remorse for his actions in the orchestration of millions of death, just remorse that he didn't get to grow carrots.
Who wouldn't be sad about that?
A lynchpin decision of his life would happen in 1934. The call of being a soldier was great, and his buddy Himmler suggested that he join the SS. The SS, I'm sure you know they are.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. While he wrote in his autobiography that he and Hedwig went into this decision with great deliberation, it isn't as he says. He wasn't really recruited as much as he applied and was accepted, and then followed instructions of Himmler to work as a SS at Dachau concentration camp under Theodor Eicke. Eicke himself was fucking insane, to be frank. He was an ultra-extreme right-wing loony who spent time in a mental asylum before being put in charge of Dachau. And also, there's no lapse in time, friends, okay? Himmler got him out of the mental ward and said, sorry about that, bro. Why don't you take over Dachau? And he was like, say less. Himmler's like, you're now going to be SS Brigadeführer. Boom.
Done. Never had an opportunity like that presented to me.
Crazy. Literally. Eicke was said to be almost like a pastor in his charisma and fervor. He really would use that to dial in and control and brainwash his SS. He would take nothing but blind allegiance and taught his guards that they were superior to their prisoners. Rudy would relay Eicke's instructions. Quote, behind the wire lurks the enemy, watching everything you do, so that he can use your weaknesses for his own advantage. Do not let yourselves be taken in, but show the enemy your teeth. Anyone who displays the slightest sympathy with these enemies of the state must vanish from our ranks. My SS men must be tough and ready for all eventualities, and there is no room for us amongst the weaklings.
None.
He had that cult leader Riz.
He did.
That's what it was. He was good at it. And while he was swiftly and harshly punished those who made mistakes, they also admired and looked up to him. They called him Papa Eicke.
Aww.
He would sit in the canteen with men of all ranks and really reminded me of Hitler in the way that he would captivate people. Because they said that, like, Hitler in person was
Charismatic.
very alluring, weirdly. The amount of control, the blind allegiance of men with guns, the hate indoctrination, as Rudolph would describe, made Ica and his SS a terrifying death machine that truly earned its emblem of that skull. The more I read about Nazis and how they work, the more I realize now that it's a hierarchy of cult leaders. Hitler at the top, several factions underneath, all oppressing and the shit out of people and brainwashing the rest. Hoess even describes it as a cult of severity. Regardless, he drank that Flavor Aid.
Drunk it up.
He was a private first class, and under Ica, he would see his first physical punishment of a public flogging of a enemy of the state. Now, an enemy of the state is another title for prisoners behind the wire, and while physical punishment had been outlawed years earlier, it was being put back into practice in concentration camps. Concentration camps were also in World War I, and they were literally just like POW, political prisoners, things like that. It wasn't necessarily
gas chambers.
Yeah, it wasn't gas chambers yet. So that's kind of where we're at. We're not full on killing everybody yet. We're getting there though. Don't you worry.
Baby steps.
Baby steps. Woo. There are 2 prisoners being punished for stealing cigarettes from the canteen, and their punishment would be 25 lashings with each by the bone breaker. The bone breaker had been a warder in the prison service for years and regarded the prisoners as little more than numbers. He was rough and he reeked of alcohol, and truly it sounded like the other warders were just a tad scared of him as well.
I'm scared of him just by the description. So
the alcohol alone, I'd be like, you know what? I'm not. You're a wild card.
Drunk guy with a thing called a bone breaker.
No.
Hard pass for me.
Not even on a good day, dog.
Not even on a good day.
The first prisoner was a small fellow who uttered not a single word or cry for all the lashes. The second was a strong political prisoner who screamed profusely the entire time. He wrote that his blood ran cold and how shocking it was. I'm not sure how authentic it is, truly, because he wrote his biography after his trial, but before his execution. But then again, people, they go to bed and they go to death without admitting their guilt, all the time.
All the time.
Yeah. But not everybody does the deathbed confession thing. But I need you to know right now, I'm going to need you to do your deathbed confessions because I need to know. I don't like that. Don't take it with you to the grave. I want to know.
I don't have anything exciting except that I'm awesome, but you already know that.
That's a done deal.
Yeah, so.
That was facts on facts on facts. That's going to be on your gravestone.
Thank you. I feel seen.
No, better yet, it's going to be on this beautiful sculpture that's going to probably be outside a library somewhere.
Exactly.
Yeah. He would state that as a regular soldier, he would stick to the back of formation so that he could look away without notice. And then when he became a block leader, he did what he could to not attend. He would go on to say, quote, later as Rappaführer and later as commander of the protective custody camp, I was forced to attend, much as I disliked it. When I became commandant and therefore responsible for ordering corporal punishment, I rarely attended in person. I certainly never ordered it without first giving the matter very careful consideration.
So what you're telling me is you're a little bitch. You'll order this stuff to be done, but then not be there.
Mm-hmm.
But back in the day, them kings was like, nah, you ordered this, you're going to watch it.
Exactly.
You're going to watch what you just... And that's how it should be. You order, you got to watch.
They got to do the Stark thing, the man who passes the sentence swings the sword.
That's right.
Yes, that's why Auschwitz is the most well-known for all the concentration camps for its general consideration and punishments. Super known for that.
Super known for it. For fair trials.
Yeah. Despite his reported dislike of the punishment, his work continued to flourish as he always completed more than was asked.
That's an excellent adjective.
Yeah. He always completed more than asked and without question. Some of his fellow soldiers reveled in the torture of prisoners, treating them as if they were not human, but generally falling in line as disobedience was not to be tolerated. For example, there are 4 SS officers found in cahoots with prisoners that worked in a butcher shop, creating a big racket. I think it was like for cigarettes or something, and food, probably shit that they needed. Ica paraded this SS in front of all the other, degrading them, publicly humiliating them, tearing off their patches and insignia, ejecting them from the SS, and sending them off for their punishment. He said if it had been up to him, he would have seen them flogged, dressed in concentration camp clothes, and thrown in with their inmate associates. He would make a long-winded speech to the SS still in uniform, warning them that the enemies of the state would be quick to exploit a soft and weak SS soldier and who felt an ounce of pity for them. That any man who dared to have pity for them should be sent to a monastery, as only the strongest and most loyal were honored with the SS's death heads badge that they wore on the uniforms. As Ika would say, for the death's head strikes its wearer if he ever deviates from our prescribed course. With Ika responsible for the overhaul of the concentration camp system, because they're now going to start pivoting, right? He felt like he needed his own unit of SS dedicated just concentration camps, which would be created in 1936 as the SS Totenkopfverbände, or in other words, the Death's Heads units. His inventions wouldn't stop there. Don't worry.
We're not done.
He would come up with a whole new penal code for the camps called Lagerordnung. He would also issue lethal commands like Postenfleck, where it was decreed that any SS seeing an enemy of the state or prisoner attempting to escape or resisting in any way, they are to shoot and kill without warning. Here is the order as it actually is written. Dachau concentration camp headquarters, October 1st, 1933. Regulations for prisoner escorts and guards. 6. Postenfleck. Whoever allows a prisoner to escape will be arrested and charged with negligent prisoner release and handed over to the Bavarian political police. If a prisoner attempts to escape, he is to be shot without warning. A guard who shoots an escaping prisoner in the course of carrying out his duty will not be reprimanded. Where a guard is physically attacked by a prisoner, the attack is to be repelled with the use of a firearm, not return physical violence. A guard who does not comply with this order shall expect his immediate dismissal. Besides, he who keeps his back free will rarely be attacked. In the event of a revolt or organized prisoner resistance, every guard supervising is to fire upon them. Warning shots are strictly prohibited.
So shoot first, ask questions later.
Yes. And I ain't even gonna be mad at it. You know what? You feel like shooting? You shoot. Boom, boom, bam, 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 bam.
And I can't even get them to penalize my colleagues when they don't come to work on time.
Motherfucker over here is like making them cry.
Yeah.
But I want to be a Death's Head soldier. Please, Daddy Ika.
Please, I'll shoot them all.
Rudy was highly favored by Ika and Himmler, and he would get Hoess promoted first of many times. Ika felt his experience in prison for murder made him perfect for the job.
I mean, it did.
It did.
He wasn't wrong.
He loves to remind the reader how he was in prison and he knows how awful it can be and how he just expects them to work and he would treat them kindly like humans. This is obviously not true, but again, he loves to remind me. Rudy spoke about the types of prisoners at Dachau at this time, as there were 10 units. One unit, just one, it contained homosexuals, Jews, immigrants, and Jehovah's Witnesses. One contained asocials, which were just criminals. They were those who committed their life to one of crime and sin and were especially denigrated. A survivor of Dachau's camp would recall compound leader Herman Baranowski's greeting of asocial criminals in the spring of 1937. Listen up, you filth. Do you know where you are? Yes? No, you don't know? Well, then I'll explain it to you. You are not in a prison, and you were not in a penitentiary either. No, you are in a concentration camp. That means you are in an educational camp. You're to be educated here, and we'll educate you, all right? You may rely on that, you stinking swine. You will be given useful work here. Anyone not performing it to our satisfaction will be helped by us. We have our methods. You'll get to know them. There's no loafing about here, and let no one believe he can run away. No one escapes from here. The sentries have instructions to shoot without warning at any attempt at escape, and we have the elite of the SS. Our boys are very good shots.
Were they?
Well, actually, yes. Sadly.
There was some truth in there.
The other 8 units contained only political prisoners because still old type. They weren't even like all legit prisoners either. Like
really shocking.
Yeah. It's like witch level accusations, you know?
You mean it wasn't okay to just put Jews and gays in prison because of what they were?
You mean
that's not legit?
They don't already do that?
Yeah. Oh, shocking. New information to me.
He said these were the ones who experienced the most anguish as there was no end date for their release, just forever sitting in limbo. He noted that it was really up to the people who accused and sent him there, and readily admitted that, quote, the last thing an office wished to do was make a mistake.
Oh, okay.
So quarterly reviews of prisoners was basically for show.
Yeah.
Just for show. And that's where we're going to leave off today. Next time, we're going to learn just how quickly he rose in the ranks, and we're going to get in how Auschwitz was created. Isn't that exciting?
So exciting. I can barely wait.
Woo!
Yippee.
Right? That's how I feel. You guys, don't forget to find us on our socials, Instagram, Facebook, Snapchat. If you've seen, we've been really active lately. And by we, I mean Jimmy.
No, that's us.
Come on now. Let's be real here.
They need to think it's us.
But we really have really loved listening to you guys and hearing from all of y'all. You've been very responsive. We really appreciate it.
Absolutely.
We love all the merch buying that's happening, that's helping us,
Yes.
reach to higher levels. We have a lot of goals this year.
We do.
So, we
We're
only waited till March.
so help us make these goals by December.
But you know what? We have things happening, okay?
We do. It's
All right,
exciting.
we're only human.
That's right.
Don't forget to rate and subscribe on all our platforms if you haven't already. We truly gain more visibility, and we would love the help if you take a moment to review us on maybe every board, everything, all the things. And until next time,
stay safe.
Keep your head on a swivel.
Let's not bring it so close to home that you let your horse come up to your bedroom. It's just the start of bad things, guys. It really is.
I mean, it really was. One crime begets another, and then before you know it,
you're working at a concentration camp.
I mean, seriously. Bye. If you enjoyed this episode of Too Close to Home, don't forget to rate and subscribe to us on most platforms. Follow us on our social media at Too Close Home Pod on Facebook, at Too Close Podcast on Instagram, or if you have your own Too Close to Home experience, shoot us your story at tooclosetohome@yahoo.com. Thanks for listening.